Hey guys, welcome back to Face to Face. I'm Tarrance, and today we're going to move forward in our segments. So I want to introduce someone that I met. Her name is Clearie, and we actually met on a project where we both are very passionate about helping and changing lives and making a difference by our stories. And we had an opportunity to collab on a play that I got involved in or pulled into, and she was a part of. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce Clearie to you guys. Hey Clearie, welcome to the show.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm good, Tarrance.
Okay. So, I know the people and myself want to know, who is Clearie?
Who is Clearie?
Who is Clearie?
Yeah. I am a 31-year-old white cis woman living in Chicago.
Okay.
My pronouns are she, her. And I currently work for a nonprofit theater company. That's how we met.
Yep.
I am a theater artist. I'm a facilitator. I'm a grant writer. I'm an abolitionist. And I'm from Lansing, Michigan. Grew up in a household with parents who were, working class. My mom cleaned houses when I was little. My dad was a mechanic. They're both retired now. Blessed, because they worked very hard. And then, eventually made my way to Detroit, and then I came to Chicago after that, so.
Okay. So when you came to Chicago, did you go directly into the theater aspect of things?
Yeah, well, I was in Detroit getting my BFA in acting, and knew that I wanted to pursue theater. Chicago has a beautiful storefront theater scene, a lot of improvisation, which was also kind of like the direction that I was going to. And then towards the end of college, I got into applied theater, which essentially is like using theater as a tool for storytelling,
Okay.
and in a way that doesn't, that says that everybody can use theater. You don't have to be a professional theater artist to use and to gain the benefits of what theater can offer, right?
Yeah.
So I was interested in pursuing that, and so when I moved to Chicago, I was seeking that out, and eventually landed at Still Point Theater Collective, and have been able to do that work.
Okay. So guys, let me tell you this. So in looking at Clearie's an amazing person, but there is something inside of her that drew me to her. So I was sitting down at the meeting and we're talking, and I can see this passion that she has inside of her. So Clearie started talking about one day that we're at a meeting, and she started discussing about her passion and what she used to do and being in the prisons. So could you expound on that? What were you doing in the prisons?
What was I doing in the prisons? Yeah. What was I? No, I mean, I was just at MCC the other day doing our reorientation, but for the past 5 years or so, I've been facilitating theater in prison. So how that kind of came about was that I got an apprenticeship in Detroit with Shakespeare in prison.
Okay.
And for 6 months I was a co-facilitator, like a student facilitator at the Women's Huron Valley Correctional Center in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And so we were working with women to help them produce their own Shakespeare play.
Okay.
And the first time that I went in, it was just, a whole experience. It was a whole experience. And the women were so welcoming. They got to explore themselves through the dramatic text.
So you take their stories and you allow them to reenact their stories, or do you guys actually go in with the story?
So for that program,
Mm-hmm.
it was producing Shakespeare plays. So it was
Okay.
using the text, and they would, the Shakespeare plays can be 3 hours long, so they would cut it. The prison was like, no, you can have an hour. So they would cut the script, which is typical anyway, because nobody has the attention span for that anymore.
Yeah.
But and then they would cast themselves in the roles that they connected to. And the thing about Shakespeare is that he has these kind of universal archetypes, right? That really deal with a lot of very human behaviors, human outcomes, and human struggles. So a lot of people in there, pretty much anybody that works with Shakespeare text is like, I can see myself in that. I can see why they made that decision, even if it was like the wrong decision, or even if it was a decision that didn't have a good outcome, you know? And so through that process, it was, using that text. And then the work that I do here is more improv based. It's more like, let's explore improv games, and then like if anybody has their own art that they're working on, you can share that. Let's make a play, an original play.
Just like Clearie, I actually went and wanted to give back. So I may have mentioned this in other video podcasts, but I went to a lot of the AA and NA and HA meetings to understand and get a better understanding of the people that I was working with in different environments that I didn't understand. So as I would go to these meetings and listen to these people inside of their grief or their hurt, their pain, I realized that there's an answer there that most people couldn't see. You know, most family members, when you find someone that is on drugs or in prison, you know, it's kind of like a place that people go, or perceived place that people go for rehabilitation, right? But it's deeper than that. You know, like a lot of times when those people go to prison, it's not, you know, a glorified ride to become rehabilitated. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of hurt. You know, did you find that being the same scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the nonprofit setting, a lot of the work that we're doing is grant writing so that we can support these projects. And unfortunately, that can feel kind of like, you know, we have to sell this to the people with the money, right? And a lot of times when I was writing about the prison programs, it was like, well, this is going to prevent recidivism. And the further I went in and researched the prison industrial complex, the more I realized that one of the main producers of recidivism, which is just like when somebody returns to prison after they've been out, right? The idea is that they're rehabilitated now. The main contributor to recidivism is prison. Like, the prison itself contributes to people going back to prison. I think there's a significant amount of people within the Illinois Department of Corrections that will go back to prison.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, maybe that's not what's happening then, you know? And so then I started trying to, why? Like, what, you know, I can't just say this theater program is going to, you know, prevent recidivism when the prison itself is contributing to recidivism, you know? So it started making me really, like, question what I was doing, what my role was, but also, like, where I was. What is this environment, right?
Yeah, those environments themselves breed people that want to come back. I had friends that have been in prison, and they would talk about the friends that they created while they were in prison. And they would come out and be out for like a week or a month and go back because they've been in there so many times or so long to where it almost seemed like home. You know, they feel more comfortable in prison, in that environment, in their gangs or in their, you know, with the friends that they met or their cellmates or cellies or whoever. And they're like, you know, I feel comfortable here. I feel weird being out. So they don't mind committing crimes to go back in.
Yeah, and it's also like, you know, during the time that they were in, nobody made sure that they had the resources that they'll need when they get out.
Yeah.
A lot of times people have to go back to the same exact place that brought them there in the first place.
Yeah.
I had like a lot of women tell me like, I'm supposed to get out next week and I'm scared and I don't even know if I want to go.
Scared to get out.
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. Because I know in the beginning they're scared to go in. Some people when you first go in, but it's hard not to evolve in those environments.
Yeah.
You know, being in such violent environments, and I'm saying violent because what happens is we take all of the bad people and we put them in here and say, hey, you need to be rehabilitated to come back out. What have you learned? You know, how are you bettered yourself? But it's hard to do that in these environments with so much chaos and so much, you know, fear and, you know, you worry. You know, it's some instances is, you know, your life or theirs, or, you know, you fight or you have to prove yourself in these environments in order to survive. So
yeah, and there's violence that's enacted on them when, you know,
when they retaliate or whatever it may be.
The guards, the prison environment itself, the procedures that you have to go through, the strip searches, like, that's violent.
Yeah. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring Clearie here. as a part of Face to Face. She's one of the newer members of Face to Face, and she's going to move forward with me, and we're going to hopefully change the world. We want to bring you into our environment so you can see our view. So I prepped her earlier, and we talked about asking questions. You know, she can ask me a question or two, and she promised that she's going to be very nice and not go in on me. But and I have a couple of questions for her also. So I'll let her shoot from the hip first and see what she has for me.
Okay. Well, I mean, one thing that we were talking about, Tarrance, is that, you know, your book and this process that you've gone through, writing your book, but also everything that's come after that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that when you shared your testimony, all these other people started coming and telling you theirs.
Yeah.
This reminds me of this person, or my brother went through this, or, you know, these people that really connected and just all of a sudden had some container or space that you've created that they can talk about those experiences in their lives that they didn't have an outlet for before that. So what has that been like for you? Has that, like, how has that been for your own healing process?
Scary. So in the beginning of this, I can remember sitting down and writing the first chapter of that book, and I thought about the suicide and the hurt and the pain I was going through, and the fact that it's already been implanted in me that most black people don't talk about their business. You keep it, you know, in your household. And my family members even confronted me about it. They were like, hey, you know, you can't be putting the family business out there. And I felt strongly about doing it because I could see the hurt and the pain in Chicago. So I wrote my story and I told it. And the first book I gave away, I remember thinking that it was going to be some backlash for a number of reasons. One being the cover of my book, and the other being the stuff that's within the pages of the cover and the end of the book. And it was a big relief, I can say, to get it off my chest, because it's therapeutic for me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I could have never imagined sitting down from the first day on my keyboard and writing to now. Like all of the lives that I've changed and all of the scenarios I've been in. And like you say, people just come up to me and tell me their story. Like, yo, because you forgave your brother's killer, I'll forgive my granddaddy for raping me. You know, a little 14-year-old girl told me that. You know, because you forgave your brother's killer, I'll forgive my dad for beating me. Or my dad from leaving my mom. And I'm thinking, like, these are nowhere near in comparison. Like, to me, that's a little problem. But their little problem is a big problem to them. And as I go into these, you know, rehabs or wherever else to talk, I realize that my problem was big to me, but their problem is huge to them. So there's no such thing to me as a little problem. But just the lives I've saved and the journey I've been on. And another one of my fears that came through was, what will my son think? Is he going to take on this burden of all of my hurts and my pains that I put in this book and try to carry it on his own, on his shoulder? So my goal was to lift the burden off me and to let my son know that it's not his burden to carry, and that we're going to put it out there in the world and let them judge it or let it help heal them or whatever it's going to be. Yeah.
Yes, healing is revealing.
Yeah.
Revealing is healing.
Yeah, but healing is definitely part of the revealing aspect of it.
Yeah, there's so much care in that. Like, there's so much thoughtfulness, and I just feel like there's so little spaces that create, again, that container for all these stories that people have that feel so disconnected when you're alone in them. But then, you know, all it takes is like that one person to open up, and then you're like, oh yeah, we're all connected and part of this earth together, you know?
And I think that in the Alex video, when Alex is talking about it, basically she trusted me. And like you say, creating that container of trust to where people can confide in you to say, hey, this is what's heavy to me. Because a lot of times the family members, they can't go to them, they can't talk to them about it because they've experienced the same traumatic, you know, experience in life. So they want an avenue to where they can actually talk about it. And if, I would say 9 times out of 10, if you meet somebody and you just be quiet, people love to talk about themselves. You know, you just let them go, and to what extent or what limit is totally up to them. So that's my thing. When people come up to me like, "Hey, I heard your story," you know, and they just like, and I'm like, "Wow, that is amazing."
Yeah.
So I love listening to people's stories of how they overcame whatever and they're still here.
Right. That's like curiosity, right? It's curiosity, but it's also curiosity that's coming from a place of compassion and like real love for our common humanity, right? Like bearing witness to other people's stories is like, I think, one of the most caring things we can do.
It is.
Sometimes.
I think it's very hard to measure someone's will to live, you know, but you can hear it in their stories. Because the things that I've been through, you may not be able to handle that. But then the things that you've been through, I may not be able to handle that. And each person have their own measurement of will or their own measurement that they want to guide themselves by to pursue and push them forward, to chase whatever, you know, dream, the will to live, the will to overcome, the will to survive, you know, whether it's for themselves or whoever. Because as I would sit and listen to those people in those AA or NA meetings, the main thing that they were talking about is how they didn't want to do it for themselves, but they found something, whether it was God or, you know, a higher being or a family member, to do it for. But it was very rare that they did it for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely, so tell me a little bit more about Clearie. So we talked earlier, and you were talking about some high school experiences with a police officer. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, high school was just a moment for me. You know, it was very formative. It was, you know, I'm a product of public high school system in Lansing, Michigan, and, you know, I was the white girl. I was always the, you know, in my group of friends, I was hanging out with mostly like Mexicans, and there was definitely this effort that I wanted to put up this kind of hard exterior and make sure that I, you know, could like hold my own, and people didn't think I was like this naive, innocent, stupid white girl, right? Honestly. So, you know, I was rebelling a lot. I was not going to school a lot. I was partying a lot, and just trying to socially survive that experience, right?
That's what high school is about, right?
Yeah, everybody has that, like, high school is not easy. And there was a night that I didn't come home, and my mom was scared, and she didn't, you know, she was trying to find me. So she called the police, and the police arrived. I was probably like 15 or something at this time. And the first thing that they asked her was where has she been hanging out, right? And I was hanging out on the north side, right, which was kind of this notorious area of the city that people looked at and thought was like crime-ridden, violent, whatever. And she said she's been on the north side, and the police officer said immediately, he was just like, "Oh, you should just give up."
He told her to give up?
Yep, he was like, she's too far gone. She's been over there, like, it's not even worth it. Like,
wow. This
is the type of detachment from, you know, any sort of humanity this person had, right? A mother, scared, looking for her child. His response was, "You should give up on her." I was 15 years old. And that's pretty much the extent of, like, where that interaction went. Like, my mom was just like, he's not going to help me. She didn't give up on me at all.
Thank goodness.
By the way. But that stuck out to me when my mom told me that. She told me, "Clearie, I called the police and I was looking for you, and you know what the police officer said? He said that I should give up on you."
And he knew nothing about you?
He knew the one thing about me, which is where I had been spending time.
The north side. Wow. There's a lot of us that people want to give up on. Thank goodness that they didn't. Our loved ones continue to pursue and I would say vouch for us, chase us, you know, until they found us in whatever place that we're in. So were you in any danger? I guess you were on the north side, so I guess there's danger all around you, and the police is very familiar with this area, or some of the things that go on that side. But were you physically at that moment in time in any danger?
Through that experience, like that 4-year period, I wasn't in a lot of safe situations. You know, I think just as a young girl, like trying to figure out who I was, you know, not being around people who I knew very well. I had good friends and people that I still talk to that I love dearly, that I was with around that time. But also I was just, you know, I was really just trying to, I didn't like school. I didn't want to be there. And, you know, so that in itself, like when you're a high school student, you're skipping school, there's always a potential for, there's this kind of looming, feeling that at any moment I could be punished, and the severity of that fluctuated day to day, you know, depending on what I was doing. But yeah, there were definitely moments that weren't safe.
So the police officer told your mother, that to give up on you because you're on the north side of town.
Mm-hmm.
So being the north side of town, that's almost like the red tape of do not go in that area. Like, you know, you can't, there's boundaries to you being, one, white, and two, I'm pretty sure there was a whole nother race. You say Hispanics or just crime or whatever associated with that area. And the moment that he knew that you went over there, it was almost like red tape, a line of invisible line drawn in the dirt saying like, whoa. Even like, to me, it's kind of like the south side, you know, or the west side here in Chicago. They're like, wait, you going to Chicago? Like, yeah. Wait, you on the south side? You don't go to the south side because they automatically attach that kind of pain or disproportion to that area.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that's the thing? Can you?
Yeah. I mean, I had, all my friends were there. I loved people on the north side, and they had families that, you know, I got to be a part of. We had barbecues, like we were growing up together over there, you know, which he didn't seem to understand.
Yeah. That
there's actual people living there that have lives and loved ones and like cute little things that they like to do for each other and like songs that they like to sing, you know. But it was interesting because like it really wasn't my neighborhood. I grew up in a different part of the city, and so I was there, but I was also still on the periphery of it. Like I still went home, and when I didn't, you know, my mom was scared because she didn't know.
I love the fact that you said barbecues. I had a discussion with one of my coworkers. I'm like, I think that white people have cookouts because black people always have barbecues. I'm like, we be cooking. The barbecue sauce is always like, it's always a barbecue sauce. I mean, barbecue. There's never really a cookout. You know, I would never tell someone.
We have potlucks.
Oh yeah, potlucks.
Yeah.
No, that is crazy. But you know what is? I can agree with you because even my dad, you know, being very important figure in my life now, when he knew that I was moving to Chicago and on the south side living in Inglewood, the first thing he told me was don't go over there, like move, leave. You know, I told him, I was like, I think that is God telling me to be here. He was like, I think that you should move. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a father's instinct for his love for his son, because I crossed the line and went into a territory that's considered dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I knew that there were people there that had smiles, that had kids, that had hope and dreams, and they needed somebody that they can look at and realize that, hey, it's going to be okay. And I knew that God created me as an answer to some of their problems, not all of them, but the ones that I came in contact with. You know, that's why I smiled even though I was hurting. Even through all the pain of me writing this book, I came there and I was a part of a family or the family that was there. You know, my church family, you know, other people that I met. They'll invite me over to their barbecues, potlucks, or cookouts, or whatever. But as a part of it, I became infused and a part of them. And I think that's important. I almost think that I became, I would say, uncomfortable with being comfortable. Mm-hmm. Could I say that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that it makes me uncomfortable to be around a bunch of people who think that they know everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if the police officer that day was willing to tell my mom that I wasn't worthy of any sort of love or like having a mother anymore, I I laugh because it's just like so bizarre, right? Then what does that say about the way that he's viewing all the people that I know in that entire area of the city,
Yeah.
right? So when it comes to like, you know, me who was able to go back home and still have my mom, but like society like giving up entirely without a second thought on like geographical areas where
Yeah.
people live.
Yeah.
I want to go in, you know, I'm like, it might not have been super conscious at the moment, but when I heard that there was a theater program in a prison, I was like, I want to go into that prison.
Don't
And I
cross that
want to see
line.
who are, yeah, that, oh, you know, everybody's like, what? You're going to go in, what? Like, you're going to go into the, why? Is it scary? Is it scary? People ask that all the time. I'm like, you know, there are moments that are scary in prison, but it's
Yeah.
always from it's from the guards.
Yeah.
It's never from the people. And I was like, I want to, you know, you learn that people are people and like people make decisions.
And that's the part I love. Like with me, and again earlier I said I was uncomfortable with being comfortable because in my normal stage of life before I came to Chicago, I was very comfortable. You know, I went to work, I had my, you know, routine down to a point, and I was just like, I hate it. Like something needs to happen. And then I became uncomfortable with that whole surrounding. I was like, I need to do something. I felt like it's a calling in my life.
Yeah.
And then the moment that I came to Chicago, I realized that I was comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to confuse, but I became comfortable being uncomfortable because it's never a dull moment. Like there would be red tape stretched out on the street, and I realized and I learned that red tape is for a dead body, and the yellow caution tape is just if an accident or something happened. You know, you'd be riding down the interstate, you see the red tape there saying, you know, don't cross this barrier. Something bad is happening within these realms of this box that we created. Whether they're looking for casings from a drive-by on the interstate or someone that was just killed there. And I've seen people where they're just laying there on the ground dead, you know, 5 minutes earlier, and then the tape's there and the body's gone, and then the tape's removed, and then people just walking by. Like there's nothing that ever happened in that scenario or that situation.
Right.
But there's a life that was lost there, or taken, or someone that was just laying there. But I do know that there are boundaries for a tape, and the fact that you have the willpower and the courage to go beyond that tape, you know, go beyond the measures of what it takes to come face to face with the person or the situation or the difference, become the difference. And I can see that inside of you as I see it in myself, and a lot of the people's story as they tell their stories and their will to live or their will to be the difference of change. And I think that's very important. So I have a question for you. So in the prison system that you're in, were you over there with the women, or was it mixture of women and men?
Yeah, I've always worked with women.
Okay, you said one of them's here in Chicago?
Yeah, so here in Chicago, I've been, for the past couple years, working at Cook County Jail and Metropolitan Correctional Center, which is if you don't know, it's a skyscraper prison in the middle of downtown.
Is that the one next door?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was
It's
like,
right
wait a
there.
minute. I'm like, I know it. That name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So, with the population that's in there, what would you say the majority race is in there? In that one, I guess.
In Metropolitan Correctional Center?
Yeah.
So it's a very odd example because MCC, Metropolitan Correctional Center, is a men's prison
Okay.
that a couple decades ago they started holding a small population of women at, which is so it's a federal men's prison that holds about 20 or so women who are kind of in flux, right? They're like waiting to be sent somewhere, they're waiting for their next trial, but they've been federally prosecuted to a certain extent.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's strange. So the women, like the group is so small there. It's a well-known fact that jails and prisons in the U.S. are disproportionately populated with black and brown people, for sure.
I actually tried to get in the prison when, you know, before I heard that R. Kelly was in there or whatever.
Yeah.
I wanted to go over and I wanted to help and give back. just to talk about the whole face-to-face, because I'm pretty sure, just like me, you come across a lot of interesting stories from people as you sit there and you try to hear their stories. And one thing for me that I've realized is it's very hard for me to judge a person off of the position that they're in, because I don't know if my back was up against the wall and I were them in that position, would I have acted differently than they have acted? I know we all have choices. We all make decisions, but some people really stand behind the decision that they made during the time that they did it. So I know my heart goes out to, a lot of people in prison, a lot of people that are going through the struggle, whether it's drugs or, the HA meetings, or, coming to some of your plays that you guys are creating there inside of the prisons to help them have a better way of life, or have a better way of understanding, or having a piece of outside come in. But do you have any other questions for me, Clearie?
Oh man, I was just thinking about all that, just in terms of, the way that I was, I think, able to enter those spaces and see how easily it could have been me. Mm-hmm. And I think about this a lot, like, I think because I'm white, that is probably a really good reason why I didn't end up going to prison. Just because I was putting myself in a lot of pretty precarious situations. But the woman that one of my best friends that I went to prom with, she's in prison. The first prison I ever taught in. Do you know what I mean?
Oh wow.
And one of my favorite authors, Adrienne Ree Brown, said she talks about harm a lot, and she talks about how when a person does harm, that's not their first interaction with harm, right? So it's hard to go in there and see all these people that have made decisions based on their own survival, and they're being punished rather than cared for, right? So. And what I'm trying to find is this, it was this quote about how most of the stories in the Bible are about people who have, made mistakes. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was this, you say, to be honest, the Bible is full of stories about people that have made mistakes. And so it's during this section about King David, which I was curious about just because that's part of the project that we're working on, right? Yes. Is I got to learn about King David, because I haven't read the Bible, and I didn't grow up religious, okay. But I love spirituality, and I love learning about religions, different religions, and biblical texts. And I say, it's almost theatrical to me, do you know?
Yeah.
And I say that as somebody who has a deep reverence for theater. Not, I think it's a sacred art form. Yeah. So I don't say it it's some, but that line stuck out to me, right? Because I'm wondering if I had a question around that, it'd be why is the Bible and Christians often so supposed to be so pure, and there's no room for impurity when the Bible itself is so full of these stories of imperfection.
Yeah. I think that is just the ideal of thriving to be more like God, and with being more like God, because God is perfect, and most people forget about that. They're the Bible is perfect, the Bible is God's, word, and they forget about the minute details in the Bible where it's a person's struggle. King David, like you said, the project that we're working on, that we're gonna, push forward in this play, is King David. He has some issues. He saw a woman bathing naked on the roof, and he wanted her. So he put her husband in a position where he was killed, and tried to bring her husband back home to make it seem like her being pregnant was from the husband, but truly it was from King David. So he put her husband out there to be killed, and God had punished him because of it. The first kid did not live. The kid died, and then they, became one together, and they moved forward. But he was not perfect. He made mistakes. And no matter how many people that, even his predecessor, which was King Saul, King Saul made some mistakes. And then King David actually learned from King Saul. He was up under his wing, didn't realize that he was in training, but he was in training to become the king. But yeah, all of us, we make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and we all strive to be better. And that's one thing that I realized. I was like, from the people on the corner begging for money to the people in prison to the drug addict, they're all on their journey to perfection. And we all have our image of what perfection looks like, and we judge them off of that image, thinking that they should look like what I imagine. And I need you to uphold that vision, uphold that image, and that's not what we're about. We should, take their perfection, whatever it is, and help enhance their version of it instead of making their version look like ours. But again, that is one of the main reasons that, once we met and we connected, I knew that you'd be a great contribution to Face to Face, and I'm definitely proud to have and honored to have you as a part of our team. And I didn't know if you had any other questions for me, or you want to address the audience, but I'm definitely glad that you're here.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just say I've learned so much since just following you guys and the stories that you've done. I've enjoyed it. Talking with you each week, and I'm so excited and honored as well to be a part of this, and I guess I'll see y'all soon.
Yes, you will. And she's been working behind the scenes with Jay and the other cast members, but we've been trying to bring you guys the best version of Face to Face, and we're going to improve as we go. And we have some exciting new guests that's going to come on in the future, and we look forward to you guys being a part of it. Thank you, and God bless.